Hey there, Senior High. We are gathered together here on the Pathway lawn, and we are so excited to be worshiping together. You guys can hear in the background, we've already started worship. I got you guys on here a little late, so sorry about that again. But you know what? We are so glad that you're going to join us. We got another song coming up, and then an awesome message. I hope it speaks to you guys. I'm super excited to give it. So let's get going to worshiping.
Reaching far beyond the Milky Way. Let's join in with the sound. Come on, let's sing it out. As the music of the universe plays, we're singing you are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. You're so unworthy, but still you love me forever. My heart will sing of you. It's all glory, all power is yours. Amen. All glory, all power is yours. Amen. All glory, all power is yours forever. You are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me forever. My heart will sing. We're singing you are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me forever. My heart will sing of how great you are. Father of kindness, you have poured out grace and brought me out of darkness. You have filled me with peace. Give of mercy on my in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Sing faithful. Faithful you are. Faithful so much. You made a way for us, Lord, so that we can be close with you, so that we can draw near to you. Father, we know that without you, this wasn't possible. It's entirely because of what you've done through your Son, Lord. We're so grateful. We love you. We pray all this in your name. Amen.
Let's take your worship team. Alrighty, I'm not going to step on those. Alrighty, so this week we are doing a devotional, and it's looking at leadership. What does it mean to be a Christian leader? And on Tuesday we talked about the person of Esther. So that's where we're going to be today. We're going to be in the book of Esther. So if you have your Bible, if you have your phone that has a Bible app on it, go ahead and flip to Esther 4. We're going to be camped there for most of the talk tonight. So, let you guys get there. Alrighty, so Esther begins not actually talking about Esther. Esther opens up and it describes the king of Persia, King Xerxes. This man, he had a lot of wealth. He had a lot of power to him. He controlled a lot of providences and different areas where the Bible took place. And the main place that our story takes place is in Susa. Now this man, he had a lot of power and he had a queen beside him, Queen Vashti. Now both of these people were confident in who they were. They had wealth, they had power, they were strong. Now, the story opens up of dialoguing and telling us a story about how King Xerxes, with all of his power and all of his prestige, simply threw a party. His party was 180 days, and he invited all of the top officials and the people who oversaw, should I step that way? Oversaw the different provinces under him. Together they met at his palace, and they simply just celebrated him and being awesome. Now, Queen Vashti, she did the same thing. She gathered all the women that were up with the officials and married to them. I should move my hand too, okay. All right, all of the people together, and she threw a party to celebrate herself as well. And the story opens up this way. It's gonna bug me all night, okay. The story opens up this way, and we see that King Xerxes actually calls Queen Vashti to come and be in front of all of the men he's gathered together. Now, he wanted her to come and just be in front of them with her crown on because she was beautiful, right? I'm not really a fan of that. So he sends the servants that he has to go get her. And she says no, she's not gonna go. Now she's not supposed to do that. She's supposed to obey the king. So the servants goes back and relays the message of Queen Vashti saying, no, I'm not gonna come in front of you and I'm not gonna be a trophy wife. And King Xerxes gets mad, and he goes to his advisors and says, what should I do? And they say, get rid of her, divorce her. So she gets removed from the picture, and that's when Esther starts to step into the story. Because she's removed, now we gotta find a new queen. So the king goes throughout all of the provinces and has his servants, his officials, go find some of the most beautiful people and brings them in, and they do kind of a beauty week. A time where they made the girls even more beautiful to find his new wife. And Esther is among them. Now, the people didn't know that Esther was Jewish. That was unique about her. In the end, she becomes chosen to be the new queen, and I believe, yes, there was outer beauty, but there was something different about her that led her to be chosen as the new queen. I believe much like in us, there's going to be times where people see us and go, I don't know much about you, but there's something about you that I like. They don't quite know it. There was something about Esther that the king must have liked that brought her into this position, and I believe that is because she followed the Lord. And that is because we follow the Lord. People see it in us by the way we behave. So Esther is now queen. She enters the picture, and that is chapter 2. Chapter 3, her adopted father, her uncle, Mordecai, overhears about a betrayal to the king. He reports it, they take care of it, and then there's even backlash because of his actions towards the Jewish people. in this area. Now, they were foreigners, so they were already kind of disrespected anyways. And a man named Haman decides to plot against them to kill all of them. Now, as Mordecai was outside of the palace at the gates, he overheard this plot against the Jews. He received and was able to get a hold of a copy of the document of the plot to kill all the Jews, and he reports it by way of Esther's servants to go tell her. And that's where we're going to start. So chapter 4, verse 7, we're going to start there. And this is the message that he sends to Esther. Verse 7 says, Mordecai told him, Esther's servant, the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destructions of the Jews. Mordecai gave, this name, I mess it up every time. Hathach. We're going to go with Hathach. Hathach a copy of the decrees issued in Susa that called for the death of all the Jews. He asked Hathach to show to Esther and to explain the situation to her. He also asked Hathach to direct her to go to the king and beg for mercy and plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. Now, as we continue to follow the dialogue, I want us to track the wisdom that we see being held, both in Mordecai, but primarily in Esther. Esther is a leader in this story because she's brave, but I believe she's a leader in this story because she's wise. So, that's Mordecai's message to her. Mordecai recognizes there's something big going on, and he taps into his wisdom to go, I need to let my adopted daughter know so she can stand up for herself and for us as a people group. I believe in our lives there's going to be times where there's certain things, not everything, but certain things where we need to decide to stand up for ourselves or stand up for others. It's going to be big things. And as we grow, we learn to recognize this. We recognize when we need to speak out. Now, Vashti, she did that. She spoke out. She said she didn't want to be a trophy wife. She didn't want to be on display. But the thing is, I don't think she maybe did it at the right time. And to be honest, I have been Vashti. I have stood up for myself and what I believed in at the wrong time. A few years back, even when it came to somebody above me, I had stuff I felt like I needed to say. And I thought it was the right time. We were actually gathered together with a bunch of people. And we just had casual conversation, and the issue that I had with him came up in conversation really casually. It was weird. And so I asked him, I was like, do you want to talk about this now, or do you want to do it later? I thought I was handling it right. I let him go and decide, when are we going to talk about this? And he said, let's talk about it now. So we started talking about it. Believe me, it was not the right time. The tension and the uncomfortable atmosphere you could cut with a knife. Both him and I left that conversation pretty hurt, probably confused a bit. It was not the right time for me to stand up for myself. But Esther, we're going to see that she knows when to stand up. She is wise in deciding when's the right time. So, Esther replies to Mordecai. We're going to continue in verse 10. Then Esther told Hathach to go back and reply this message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people in the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message back to Mordecai. Now we see Esther's wisdom start to show. Yes, we see the wisdom of Mordecai telling Esther, this is something to stand up for. This is something that's going to affect you even in the palace. But Esther recognizes the other side of the wisdom of going, okay, I do need to stand up for this, but what am I going to get myself into when I do this? She recognizes to stand up for what she believes in means that there might be something coming back towards her. And in this case, it could be certain death. So she now has to figure out, am I willing to give my all, my literal all, into what this means for me? Am I going to stand up for this? Mordecai replies back through the way of the servant. Mordecai sent his reply to Esther, verse 13. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, that you will escape when all other Jews are being killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, most likely an invading nation. But you and your relatives will die. King's family, probably it's going to be gone with an invading nation. He ends it with this to his message to Esther. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time like this? Who knows, perhaps you have been placed where you are for such a time like this. Where has God placed you guys? Are you in some capacity of a leadership role? Are you not? In either way, wisdom of knowing when to speak up for what you believe in is important. Mordecai recognizes this. Maybe chance led you to this moment, but they believe in something more, that God has led you to this moment. The thing is, just because we're put into a leadership role doesn't mean necessarily that's going to get us all the way we need. Having wisdom like Esther to recognize when to talk and when to listen is important. We can't lord over our power, our leadership, our authority. We have to listen and be humble. So the last reply that Esther gives is in verse 15. It says, Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I, we will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go and see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went and did as Esther told him to. Esther has finally decided, yes, I am officially, for sure, 100%, however you want to say it, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stand up. But she doesn't stand up until she says, let me come before my God first. Let me be with him, be with my Father, be with the person who gives me wisdom and gives me the words to say before I go and say something. So chapter 5 hits now. We finished chapter 4. Chapter 5 is where the action happens. So dialogue happened. She's made up her mind. She's going to go stand up to the king. She's going to tell her that she's a Jew. She's going to tell her that her people are being threatened. She's going to tell him. So what does she do? She comes before the king whether or not she's going to die. She enters in, and he shows mercy. Lets her speak, say what she wants. We think this is the moment that she's going to tell him. But she doesn't. She waits and says, let me throw a banquet for you and Haman. I'm like, okay, you kind of just wasted your opportunity. You were shown mercy. This was the time for you to share, to stand up. But she doesn't. So we fast forward to the banquet. She's there. The king's there. Haman's there. We're thinking this is going to be the moment that she's going to share, right? She doesn't. Because her husband's drunk. She has a big thing she's going to share, and her husband's not in the right mind to have this kind of dialogue. Like, darn it, man, that opportunity wasted. But he's in the right mind enough to at least ask her another question. What do you want? So what does she say? Let me throw you another banquet. So she throws another party for her husband, Xerxes, and for Haman. She's intentional in bringing in those who are part of the problem. We come to the third banquet, and he's in his right mind. He's not drunk. She finally speaks her mind. Chapter 7, verse 3. Queen Esther replied, if I have found favor with the king, she's respectful to begin with. And if it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people will be spared. For my people and I have been sold to those who would kill us, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had merely been sold to slaves, I could remain quiet, for that would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king. She brings up the fact that if it was a different issue, she might not stand up. But because of the severity of what she believes in and the issue, she decides to stand up and vocalize. So what does the king do? He becomes outraged. Who would dare to threaten my wife, a Jew? Who would dare to threaten her people? And there in the banquet, Esther points to Haman and says, this man is the one who has done such things. Now what I love is the king displays a little bit of wisdom too. He leaps. He doesn't start yelling right away. He goes away and calms down a bit, hopefully. But what do we see Haman do? He starts begging for mercy by Esther. The king walks back in and thinks he's already assaulting her, trying to get rid of her. And so what does he do? He backlash removes Haman and starts to right what has been done wrong. Esther shows time and time again of opportunity to share, but doesn't. She waits for the right moment. We see time one, she doesn't share time two, she doesn't. And finally, the third opportunity, she does. All while that's been happening, Haman's pride, his arrogance, his lust for power has been speaking for itself. Sometimes when we're in situations in our life and we feel like we need to stand up, when we don't, the other party might be speaking for themselves and siding with you. They might be proving your point. And so their words are speaking louder than what your words might. And so choosing to wait, Esther let Haman contribute to his downfall. So what are specific situations in your life where you should demonstrate wisdom of learning when to speak? Sometimes we're going to be Queen Vashti, I've been that, but I strive to be Esther. I strive to know when to zip my lip and when to speak. So for instance, perhaps you're having a hard time with a friend, sibling, or even your parents. Wisdom could look like in that situation knowing when to speak to them and how to speak to them respectfully, even though you're standing up for yourself. Perhaps while at school, either this last year or maybe this next coming year, you receive a grade that you're not very happy about with the test or with the project, and instead of lashing out right then, of being unhappy and telling the teacher that in front of everybody right when you get it, you become wise and choose to schedule a time to go talk to your teacher. Perhaps in that conversation, they might show you mercy, give you a chance to earn some points back. Rather than speaking right away, we pause, we wait for the right opportunity to speak what we need to say. Lastly, another example could be perhaps you're simply in a discussion with somebody who has different opinions, views, or even beliefs than you. Wisdom in that situation could be knowing when to speak and when not to. Because if you speak right away, they might be lashing back at you, they might get defensive, or they might just not be listening to what you have to say in that moment. Wisdom looks like pausing and coming back to the conversation. So again, what are situations that apply to you specifically, where you can practice the wisdom of Esther, whatever position you're in, of pausing and sharing and standing up for yourself when it's the right opportunity, where you can read the room and know that people are listening and want to hear what you have to say. Let's pray. Father God, thank you. Thank you for the story of Esther, of a teenager who displays wisdom, who displays bravery, who is put into a position of authority and leadership. May we continually learn from her, of her displays of bravery, but of her displays of wisdom. Wherever we're at in our life, God, would you help us to display wisdom too? Wisdom of knowing when to speak, how to speak, what to say, or even more so, and even more challenging, wisdom of knowing when not to speak at all. Help us to identify what are the big matters in my life that are really important, that I must stand firm in, that I must speak my mind? And what are the matters that aren't as important, that we can simply talk about, that we can change our mind on? God, help us to be wise in the way we talk to one another, in how we talk to one another, whether that's in person or even on social media, Lord. Help us be wise on social media. We thank you for your sharing and showing us wisdom through your Bible and through simply speaking to us. Continue to speak to our hearts as we learn to be wise individuals who are seeking you. In your name. Amen. Alrighty, you guys are free to hang out still.
Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us midweeks online. We're excited to see you. We hope to see you next week.